videos, I'm going to teach you how to split playing cards and create your own gaffes and gimmicks for magic tricks. In order to split a playing card, the first thing that you need to know is how a playing card is designed. If you're looking at a bicycle back playing card, or really the majority of most playing cards, they're going to be designed this way. Some cheap playing cards like dollar store cards, or maybe even at Walmart, the cheaper decks of cards, typically what they make like travel decks of cards out of. These are going to be made out of plastic coated types of playing cards, and they only actually have two layers. It's a front and a backing layer, and there's glue in the middle, but there's actually only two layers to these playing cards. Standard playing cards like bicycles and whatnot are going to have 3 layers of playing cards, and I'll give you a shot of that so you can see. You've got the front printed portion. You've got the middle portion, which is essentially just composed of bits of playing card and glue. And then you have the backing portion that's also printed. Those 3 layers are what combined create a playing card. Now let's get into how to split cards. With this information, you can split any type of playing card. Casino playing cards, specialty decks of cards, the travel decks of cards, and even Cards Against Humanity cards or other playing card games like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever you want to split. You can pretty much use this information to split any of these cards. Before you get started with splitting your playing card, you may want to break the card in. One way to do this is to simply take the edge of a table and your thumb and run the finger straight down so that you get it to curl just like that. You can turn it around the other way, and then you want to do it the opposite corners. So that the whole playing card has been broken up in this manner. Now you're ready to split it. To start the split of the playing card, you want to take any one of the 4 corners. And you're going to begin to not fold the corner over, but to roll the corner back and forth between your fingers, just like that. You'll notice that the corner actually starts to fray. Now, if you get your fingernail underneath one of these frayed corners, you can actually start to peel up one layer of the playing card. This layer of the playing card is peeling away from the glue section and giving you just the backing portion of the playing card. Okay, so you start that split just like that. Now what you want to do is, since we're going to take the backing piece, that's the thin side that has pulled away on this one, we're going to take the back and lay it facing down on the working surface. We're going to keep the glue layer and the other thin surface that's the front facing upwards. You're going to take your corner, and that's the corner of the backing piece that we're splitting. You're going to place your finger on top of that, and you're going to begin to peel your playing card forward. As more of the back becomes exposed, you want to take and keep your fingers applying pressure on as much of the surface area as possible. So you just keep going little by little, keeping your fingers pressing firmly down on the backing piece, and just slowly, little bit by little bit, peeling away this whole section of playing card. You're going to notice that these cards, once you split them apart, are going to be all curled up just like this. But now we have a backing layer and a thick layer that has the front portion and the middle glue chunk. You're going to keep both of these pieces. Okay? We're going to get the curls out of the cards, but first we actually need to buff the fibrous surface of these playing cards, and I'll show you how to do that now. The next step of the process is we need to buff the interior fibrousness of the playing cards. That way we get as smooth as a surface as possible. To do this, you can use a very fine grade of sandpaper. This is just general use sandpaper, general purpose sandpaper, but it's very fine. It's 220 grit. So it's a very fine surface. To make the job a little bit easier, you could also just use a sanding block. I prefer to use this solution just because you can get a super fine sanding block and it'll do the job just fine. I found mine online because most of the sanding blocks in my area, just at stores and whatnot, we're not fine enough of a grain in order to do this job properly. If you don't get a fine enough grain, you'll actually tear up the playing cards and it won't do the job necessary. So now we're going to buff the interior of the playing cards to get the flat surface. Okay, so you just want to run the sanding block over the surface a few times on each side. You may also want to go from the opposite directions, so that way you go both widthwise and lengthwise. You want to keep it facing downwards and go from the middle out as you do this. All right, and now we have a completely smooth surface to work with. If you didn't buff off these fibrous pieces, it would actually clunk up whenever you're re-gluing these later, which we'll get into that after this. So we're going to go ahead and buff this front piece out as well. And again, you want to go middle out and just kind of rotate the card around, making sure you get it both lengthwise and widthwise. Now, sometimes on the thicker layers of the playing card, I like to sand them a little bit further, but we'll get into that a little bit later when I'm showing you how to assemble these. All right, so now this one's nice and smooth, and these cards are ready to be pressed so that way we can take out these curls. The last thing you need to do before we're able to put these back together is you need to press them for at least 24 hours so that they'll be nice and straight. One way you can do this is with a big heavy book. Today we're going to be using this big heavy book. It's Tools of Titans from Timothy Ferriss. Great read if you haven't gotten around to it. So we're just going to lay the playing cards just like so on our surface. Take the big heavy book, lay it down. You want to leave that there for at least 24 hours. If you want to have nice, crisp, perfectly flat cards, I would actually recommend leaving them there a little bit longer, up to 3 days. So using a book when you're first starting out is just fine. And a matter of fact, if you get a book that you don't really care all that much about, you can even go as far as using the interior pages to keep your gaffs and gimmicks and pre-split cards nice and straight inside of there. Another thing that's helpful is if you just sit down, watch a movie, listen to some good music, and split a bunch of playing cards all at the same time. You want to get a nice mix of stuff to use. By pre-splitting a bunch of playing cards just in a couple hours, it allows you to very quickly be able to assemble gimmicks later. If you don't want to use a book, you could use wooden boards just like this. I got these from Hobby Lobby, just in their craft wood section. They're the perfect size to have 2 stacks of cards just like that on there, and you can press another one right on top just like so, and then you use these types of clamps to clamp them down. And I actually use the way I use these boards is I'll stack all of my pre-split playing cards on one section, so just like this. You want to be careful of your placement because they can get like wrinkled up on the edges here. You want to make sure that whenever you're laying these down, just like so, you get about as even of a surface as possible. And then you can place your other piece of wood on top. And I would actually recommend placing a couple of pieces of wood on top, just like so. Make sure everything's squared up nicely underneath so you don't ruin your edges. Pinch everything together, and we're going to use 4 clamps. So we use all 4 clamps, just like so. And we'll arrange this one a little bit better. So you can put all 4 clamps on there and you can store all your pre-split playing cards. This stack of wood also serves me another purpose in that it allows me to not only store my pre-split playing cards, but I can also store the gimmicks and gaffs that I've already assembled, which we're going to get into assembly in the next video.